All right, what is up, everybody? My name is Corbin. I am the head coach at Allegiant Gym South Bay. I'm coming to you live, taking a break from my vacation so I can answer your questions. Let's get into it. So my first question asks, do I recommend weighted hip bridges? And if not, why are they not a good exercise? So maybe if you've noticed, we don't do any weighted hip bridges in our programs. And it's definitely one of the more favorite choices for exercises on Instagram. But the reason that we don't do them is kind of twofold. One, we look at it as kind of a low return on investment exercise. When we talk about growing a muscle, and let's just be honest here and call it what it is, the weighted hip bridge is meant for growing your glutes. And so if we're looking to grow a muscle or activate a muscle or cause muscle damage to get that muscle to rebuild and come back stronger, bigger, better than it was before, we want to lengthen that muscle, cause a lot of muscle damage under load, under a full range of motion. You hear us talk about that range of motion when we're doing squats and RDLs and deadlifts, really trying to get that tissue to lengthen to its full range that you have available. During a weighted hip bridge, it's not a big range of motion exercise. That maximum full range of motion isn't available to you. So you're never going to get the maximum results that you might get from a deadlift or an RDL or some other hinge component or some other hinge exercise that is targeting the same muscle groups. Now, maybe there's a world where we could use hip bridges as a form of pre or post fatigue, something along those lines. But the reason why we don't do that is because we don't view it as a high return on investment exercise, but also we don't view it as a safe exercise. So when we think about how the spine is meant to be loaded or how the pelvis is meant to be loaded, we all walk upright. So the spine is meant to be loaded in an upright, stacked vertical column, right? All our vertebrae are stacked that way, and we can take this vertical compression, which is why, for the most part, loading ourselves vertically with a barbell on our shoulders, a belt around our waist, things like that are relatively safe to do when done correctly. Instead, during a hip bridge, if our shoulders are elevated or back is flat on the ground, we've got our spine now in a suspended horizontal position, and it's not meant to be loaded this way. So you've got a heavy bar, and again, because of the shortened range of motion, generally we can be up above 100, 200 kilos in a movement like this. Now positioned kind of on that juncture between the pelvis and the lower spine, and it's asking for some type of vertebral damage in there when we're loading the spine in that horizontal suspended position. Now you will see us use hip bridges as a part of our corrective exercise strategy, but this is more as a part of an extended specific warm-up. So when we're looking at our practice 3 and we're going to do some form of RDL, single leg RDL, deadlift, something like that, and we're looking to get blood flow specifically to the muscles that we're looking to work. So hamstrings, glutes, as well as activate those muscles. And we can find that doing hip bridge variations unloaded are a really good way to rehearse the movement pattern and get those muscles some extra blood flow so that they're warmed up and ready to go by the time we get to that first set of our A series. The next question states that they hate week 4 as much as anybody else, but they feel like they're hitting their stride right around week 4. Will there ever be a block where we do 5 weeks or even 6 weeks? So this is a really fair question. When we think about programming a microcycle, we can go anywhere from 2 weeks, maybe even 1 week in very certain situations, or we could go as long as 6 weeks. This is going to really depend on what your training age is, muscle fiber type, and how long it generally takes you to adapt to certain movements. Now, when we think about group programming, we are trying to hit the main portion of the bell curve. So we've got 80% in the middle that we find that 4 weeks is probably the perfect amount of time to spend going through one series of exercises, sets, reps, and tempos. But it's probably too long for a group of people who have a really high training age and have a capacity for a little bit more change, or they're a little bit more type 2 muscle fiber oriented. And then on the bottom end, we're going to miss probably about 20% or 10% of people who are brand new to training. They are very unfamiliar with the movements, or maybe they're just a little bit more type 1 muscle fiber oriented. And that's okay. We're not going to, we're talking a 1% difference on if we stick with a training program a little bit too long or we vary it a little bit too much. My recommendation to you would be just try to zone in a little bit earlier on choosing the appropriate weights and progressing appropriately week to week. So use the weekly analytics in Bridge. If we aren't tracking our weights every single session, make sure that we take the little bit of extra time to plug in those weights so that even if it's 6 months from now and it's our first time doing barbell back squat again, you have an idea of where you were at last time and you can make the appropriate adjustments from there. It's not the easiest thing to do because we do have so much variation in sets, reps, and tempo. However, it still gives you a little bit better gauge to go off of, and that will hopefully help you adjust a little bit quicker. So 4 weeks ends up being that sweet spot of how long a block should last. All right, my third question on this AMA asks about, can we bring back arm farm? And this person states that doing a online version or posting previous arm farms would be a perfectly good solution to this problem of having this person or helping this person get bigger arms. So we're not going to bring back arm farm. Let's just get that out of the way right now. However, an online version or posting previous arm farms may be something that we can look into. However, I'd say that before we start worrying about hitting arm farm, we need to make sure that we are consistently getting our 4 days a weekend. If we aren't getting our 4 days a weekend, an extra 30-minute session of bis, tris, and shoulders isn't going to help you get the aesthetic that you want. What is making sure that we get practices 1, 2, 3, and 4 in every single week. That's going to be the majority of your volume geared towards not only arms, but the other parts of your aesthetic that you're looking to develop, because nobody just wants big arms and small legs and a small torso. And it's only going to be complementary to those 4 days. So get your 4 days in of team or strength and also practice 4, but don't worry so much about missing out on arm farm. You can always, after practice 2, get that little bit of sculpting in. That should be plenty. My answer to the next question is actually going to be very similar. So this person asks, are we ever going to get showers in a sauna in our Santa Monica location? The answer to that question is no. There would be a lot of construction that have to be done in order to get something like showers in there. And then something like a sauna, I think in a public space is a little bit gross, but also just very, very difficult to manage who gets to use the sauna and when, and scheduling it out and cleaning. And it'd be a whole fiasco. We are a strength training gym and we really want to stick to what we know we are good at. The other part of this, just like I said in the previous question, is whatever you think you're going to get as far as results or recovery based on using a sauna is probably not going to be as good as making sure that you get your practices 1, 2, and 3 of team or strength and your practice 4 in, as well as getting 8 hours of sleep, getting 7 to 8 servings of vegetables a day, or drinking half your body weight in ounces of water. That stuff is going to be way more important than if you are doing a sauna a handful of times a week. And that sauna is going to really only be a 1% difference off the top anyway at the end of the day. So don't worry so much about the sauna. Don't worry so much about whether or not we post arm farm. Get your 4 days at Allegiant in, sleep, recover, train, do all of that good stuff that we talk about in the habits videos and all of that stuff. My next question asks, what's the best split for somebody who can only train 3 days a week max? So you're at the perfect place. Allegiant is the best place to train. They have the best split for somebody who's looking to only train or only has time to train 3 days a week max. Your split is going to be total body every single session with 48 hours in between. So that's the way that we've structured our team and strength programs. Is practice 1 is going to be a little bit more squat oriented, but we're going to hit upper body pushes, upper body pulls, lower body pushes, lower body pulls throughout that entire session. And then you take 48 hours off. When you come back in for the next practice, we'll have a different main movement of the day, but we're still going to hit a total body workout. We'll use different planes, different vectors, so that it's not the exact same, but you've had lots of recovery time in between. So that's how you maximize your efficiency in the gym. 3 days a week, total body split. And my last question for the day is, why doesn't Dre do behind the blocks? We would love to hear from him. We would all love to hear a little bit more from the butcher himself, but that's just a question you're going to have to ask him. If he wants to do a guest appearance on the Ask Me Anything, he's more than welcome to join. I'd love to have him on. Go ahead, start throwing that peer pressure at him. Allegiant thrives on peer pressure. Let's get him on the Behind the Block for next block. All right, guys, that wraps up the Behind the Block for block 13. Go ahead and finish off 2023 strong. Get those classes booked. We have our Lift Miss Challenge, so if you signed up for that, get ahead, start booking those classes so you stay up to date on that challenge. All right, last block of the year, get your 4 days a weekend here at Allegiant. Let's get some momentum rolling leading into 2024 and those New Year resolutions. Thanks, everybody, for submitting your questions. See you next month.